I think that often when people say, what are human rights, they think they're something sort of remote from us. They're international things that really don't affect us here in Britain at all. And I feel very strongly that actually human rights isn't about that at all. Human rights is precisely the opposite of that. It's actually about what it means to have dignity because we're a human being. And it's also about what it means to be an individual and at the same time operate within a society.
Morning, everybody. How are things?
Cherie Booth QC is a human rights lawyer and founding member of Matrix Chambers, a group of barristers specialising in civil liberties and human rights litigation. She's passionate about translating human rights values into an understanding of human rights and the law in the UK. Within citizenship, across all key stages, legal and political literacy, knowledge of human rights processes and the law have been cited as particularly difficult to teach. We've brought together a cross-section of teachers who want to develop a fuller understanding of human rights. And through grappling with core concepts, we'll follow them as they develop and implement ideas for the classroom. Simon and Lee are from Erith Secondary School. Polly and Darren are from Wanstead High School. This programme will focus on Key Stage 2, and Elaine and Craig from St Albans Primary School will meet various experts before testing out their knowledge in lessons, using Cherie as their legal expert.
I feel very strongly that we have to get over to the children at school and through them, their parents, that actually human rights really are close to home and have meaning to them in their school, in their families and in their community. It's not just a selfish thing. Human rights isn't just about me, me, me. Human rights is actually about how I operate with my rights and my integrity coming up against you with your rights and your integrity, and how do we somehow muddle along together?
I think we want them to be able to see things from somebody else's point of view, and I think that one way that we can do that is to start off by talking about what's fair and what's not.
What sort of situations bring up what is fair and what is unfair?
I think that there are lots of times when children want things that other children want, and so there's always that fight over the book in the classroom.
But even in schools, it's not quite as black and white as that, is it?
No.
Well, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
St Albans School in central London is a one-form intake inner-city primary school. Their challenge is to make their understanding of human rights and the law accessible to years 5 and 6. One of the things that primary-age children can struggle with is distinguishing between needs, wants and rights. Elaine has asked her Year 5 children to individually list the top 3 things they think they need to promote equality in their classroom and to give reasons why.
We have the right to be respected. Why did you pick that one as your number 1?
If you never had respected, then you'll be a fight
And so there might be a fight if you're not respected.
They then translated their needs and wants into a set of rights for the class.
Lovely seeing you and welcome to St Albans.
I'm delighted again, absolutely delighted to be here.
To develop Year 5's understanding of rights in action, Elaine has asked Cherie to take part in a lesson. She wants to get the children to empathise with each other so that they can move towards an understanding that human rights are for everyone and should be upheld equally.
I'm sorry, we were going to have chairs, but it just wasn't practical. Now, what I want you to do with your partner is I want you to do a little chat, but I want by the end of it, in a minute, Dylan, to have 2 sentences for you and your partner. One sentence is, it isn't fair when, and the second sentence is, when something isn't fair, I feel when.
So what do you think? It isn't fair when what?
when my little brother gets everything.
And you don't get anything?
Me and my other brother, we just feel like loads of stuff.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it makes me feel really angry and stuff. How about you?
Well, I think it isn't fair is because I've just been to Afghanistan and Pakistan, and there are some women in Afghanistan who aren't even allowed out of the house on their own, and that certainly makes me feel it isn't fair.
Have you been to India?
I've been to India about 3 or 4 times. Where do you come from?
Bangladesh.
Bangladesh. I've been to Bangladesh once too.
Okay. When something isn't fair, I feel really frustrated.
It isn't fair when I get in trouble but my younger cousin don't.
It isn't fair when someone gets chosen for something and I don't.
It isn't fair when we don't get respected by the children.
It isn't fair when someone else's right gets kept and the other one gets broken.
When something isn't fair, I feel really, really angry.
It isn't fair when the parents treat the younger ones, give them more attention than the older ones.
When something isn't fair, I feel sad and left out.
Wow, lots of good words there today. Fantastic.
By giving each group a dramatic scenario to act out, Elaine is trying to encourage her class to explore what it's like when rights are in conflict with each other.
We need somebody to be Sanjay.
I'm Sanjay.
Your right is going to be what?
I have the right to express myself.
Right. And who's going to be Mohammed? You're going to be Mohammed, because you're the sort of silent, studious type who wants to just get on and do your work. Absolutely. At one point we want Mohammed to say, shut up, because I can't get on with my work. And we've got to have Sanjay to say,
But I have the right to say what I think.
meanwhile the teacher wants to get on to teach.
Okay, shall we see this one? Because you're working with Cherie, weren't you?
Good morning. Today we're going to learn about human rights. Shush. Stop it. I have the right to learn.
I have the right to say what I think.
Excellent, well done. Okay, what I'd like you to do now, we're going to swap parts. So if you were the one person who felt like something was unfair, I want you to swap with the other person, so you're playing the other role.
Shh. I have a right to learn. I have a right to say my feelings. Say what I think.
You know, I think the most important thing to think about is, Joseph, how you were feeling when you had to swap roles.
Well, I was the one who was like talking, and I know how Lisa must have felt because she was just going, shh, be quiet already, and it just felt really annoying when people keep talking to you when you don't want them to.
I mean, I think we were right to keep it very focused on examples that the children were able to identify with and experiences that they had had, because I didn't want to go outside of that box, because they wouldn't have been able to empathise with it, exactly, and that was the whole point, really, and being able to empathise with those situations.
But maybe you could also talk about the people who help us make that decision. So, you know, like so the teacher in the class will decide when's a quiet time and when's a noisy time, and that's because she's helping us be able to exercise both kinds of rights.
It's interesting you say that, actually, because when we started looking at this whole area, it did start to make me think, do I actually have the right to tell them they can't go to the toilet at the moment? You know, things like that. And I was thinking, you know, maybe we really need to radically adapt how we run things sometimes to make them more rights-based. And it gave me a lot of food for thought. It's a really interesting topic, actually. And I think it's something they've really benefited a lot from.
Since the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights first articulated rights for all in 1948, following the horrific experiences of the Holocaust and the Second World War, the fundamental freedoms of speech, religion, freedom from want and freedom from fear seem self-evident. Although a declaration is not a legally binding document, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or UDHR, extended the development of international law by declaring that how a government treats its own citizens was a matter of legitimate international concern. In the wake of the UDHR, the Council of Europe passed the European Convention on Human Rights in 1950. These convention rights became legally enforceable through the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. However, taking a case to Strasbourg has proved to be a time-consuming process. In 1998, the British government decided that 16 of the European Convention rights should be incorporated into UK law in the form of the Human Rights Act, This came into force on the 2nd of October 2000.
Universal Declaration, the European Convention, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the Convention on Torture, all of those are actually international treaties and not directly enforceable in our courts unless the government passes through our parliament legislation that brings them home. And so the difference when we're talking about the European Convention of Human Rights and the Convention on the Rights of the Child, for example, is the Convention on the Rights of the Child remains an international convention, but there are a lot more detailed rights in the Convention of the Rights of the Child, which are goals, if you like, that have been set by the international community for what we'd like to see for all our children.
Okay, so what I want to do is, could you try and remind me of some of the human rights you know or you've learned about in recent days?
The right to have fun.
Yeah, fun is an important right, and you've got the right to it. Yeah, Marco?
You have the right to live with your parents.
You've got the right to live with your parents, that's a really good one.
A lot of the teaching of human rights in Key Stage 2 is based on the aspirational UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. Craig's Year 6 class can easily remember many of its over 40 articles. But today they're trying to pin down how human rights apply in their school and local community. Craig has devised a mapping activity so the children can identify human rights in action all around them.
Have a look at the school playground. There's quite a lot of rights going on here that you might not realise are here. What have you decided? You've got the right to play, okay, so put that one on there. The right to play next to that, that's a really good one. Okay. Also, can you see there's a fence around it? Why is that fence there?
Because they're protected to, if like a thief come inside and it might kill you.
Okay, so it's a safety thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, have a look at your list of rights. Why have I stopped you outside a church?
Number 12.
What does
you
it
have
say?
the right to enjoy your own culture and practice your religion.
Okay, what other buildings could be there instead of a church? What could be there instead?
A mosque or a temple.
A mosque or a temple, okay. Right. If you all line up against the wall, why have I brought you here, okay? Have a look at it, and did you know?
If you're blind, you can feel those stuff.
All those lumps, you can feel them, can't you? Disabled people's rights, human rights being met. Brilliant. If you look over there, think about that shop. Think about human rights.
The news agents and stuff, they sell books, stuff like that, that can help with your education.
So it's meeting people's educational needs. Also, I think everyone's got the right to the news. Everyone's got the right to know what's going on in the world.
To develop their ideas about making rights relevant, they want to find ways of helping the pupils understand the concept of the balancing of rights. Elaine and Craig have arranged for Michael Newman, an education project worker from the Humanities Education Centre in Tower Hamlets in East London, to come to their school to share his passion for teaching children rights. He starts with a rights assembly.
What kind of things do we need to build a human being? Arms. Some hair.
Brain.
A brain. Ears. Great listening ears. Think about what do you need to help you be yourself. Emotions. Excellent. You need food to help you to grow. You need friends. Excellent. You need your mum and dad. You need your family. Now this is a very, very sad story because the scientist making this superhuman being forgot all of these. And you might recognise who the creature is. Yes.
So what does happen to you if you don't have any rights? What does happen?
Well, according to this story, you cannot become a human being, but the image is becoming a monster, which is quite controversial.
It's funny, we've sort of come a bit full circle, really, with thinking that we could do this and then thinking that it was actually going to be very difficult. So that's made it a bit...
I think it's very easy. It's been clouded by people being a bit scared of it and by sort of linking it to ideas that aren't really part of rights. There's this idea of responsibilities.
Everything that we've looked at before has actively put them together, and I've actually been teaching my children like you can't have one without the other.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that, so long as children don't get the message that if I'm a child and I say, I believe I have the right to speak in my classroom, and then you say, well, you need the responsibility to listen.
Yes.
To go with that right.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
As a child, I don't want to go away thinking, well, if I don't listen, I lose my right to speak.
Yes, exactly.
I think we have... What you need is in our community, for anyone to have the right to speak, everyone else must respect that right, and in respecting that right, they have to listen. If I want to speak when I want to speak, irrespective of everyone else, then that's licence. And with licence, you cannot get rights.
Oh, licence. Yeah. It's another thing.
There's a word.
It's another word. It's
another word to deal with.
And we do a thing called the values line. You say, right, I'm going to create a line in the classroom. So we're going to stand on that. Thank you. So this is my values line, and at one end of the line we have a negative, and at the other end of the line we have a positive. So you would have an issue like one of the rights that is in conflict, and you'd make a statement where then they can stand on the line to reflect their opinion about the statement.
Okay.
So if it was the right to privacy, say the right to privacy is in conflict with adults' responsibilities of care. If they stand on this end of the line, the positive end, it means they have total privacy. Absolute privacy. They stand at this end, they have no privacy. But you can say it in a positive way. You say their parents look after them, and because their parents care for them, they normally will stand on different parts of the line.
And the rest of them will go, no, because imagine
they have to leap between.
Well, they don't argue during the thing. What you do is.
They do.
Well, not when I've done it.
We need some good situations then.
What I've got here is some photographs that illustrate different rights. In terms of just sort of refocusing on different rights and what rights there are, and then thinking about what conflicts can arise between them. A good starting point would be simply an arrangement of some of the important rights that there are.
You'd be looking for where that's being broken, that right?
Yeah. Or it's being expressed. It's either being expressed. Sometimes.
I.e. comme ça.
Yeah, there's a child being injured.
Yeah.
Or being held against their will.
These look like the Charter of Children's Rights,
they
aren't
are.
they? Okay.
It's the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child.
Yeah, okay. It's one thing I do know.
Alongside understanding the nature of human rights and knowing what some of their rights and freedoms are, children can also work towards understanding what human rights are not. For the most part, fundamental rights are not absolute. Most of the rights in the Human Rights Act are qualified and limited with responsibilities to others. Understanding that rights have limitations and qualifications is where the balancing of rights begins.
If anyone ever asks me about human rights, I say the thing about them is that they're never actually really as black and white as you might think. They're all about degrees, and they're all about what we lawyers call proportionality often. Because you have, in Article 8, you have everyone has a right to private and family life. Except, and then the exceptions are the restrictions that are necessary in a democratic society where we all have a say. And that's partly about the whole business about the individual, yes, but you've got to look also at the community.
It's like a utilitarian approach to ensuring that the greatest number have their rights protected.
Yeah. Except that in the end, of course, at the heart of human rights is the individual. And so some of your rights, even if you're the only person who's affected, the fact that you may still be able to defend those rights.
To protect our rights, the Human Rights Act of 1998 does three main things. It makes it unlawful for a public authority to violate convention rights unless there is no choice due to an Act of Parliament. It also makes it clear that all UK legislation should be interpreted in accordance with the convention rights if possible. New legislation is monitored by the Joint Committee on Human Rights, or JCHR. Finally, it allows for cases claiming a breach of the Convention to be dealt with directly in a UK court or tribunal. Amanda Illing is Cherie Booth's practice manager.
Hi. Hello.
We invited her to St Albans to help Craig and Elaine gain a better understanding of the legal processes around the Human Rights Act.
So how would you bring a human rights case to law?
Well, that's the thing that people don't understand, is that you don't bring a human rights case. You could bring an employment tribunal case. So you could say that the head teacher looking at your private emails was, you know, contravening employment law rights, on privacy rights, but it could be a Human Rights Act point as well.
So it's sometimes used to strengthen a case?
Yes. The other thing is about how the Human Rights Act has impact on people's rights in terms of the laws that are being made now. because nothing now gets passed as law unless it's been scrutinised by a group of people who are ensuring that the human rights aspect of it has been looked at. So, for example, the education bill that's going through at the moment, there's one aspect of providing transport to school. So, because it got scrutinised by the JCHR, we now have parents who want to send their children to non-religious schools, thereby leapfrogging a nearer religious school. The local authority now has to provide transport for that child to go to that school, whereas before the local authority would provide transport for a child to go to a religious school, but not for a non-religious school outside the...
Okay.
The thing to get across is that the Human Rights Act encompasses everything. It's the softer issues that you have rights, and you know there's a framework there for you to make sure that they're upheld.
Okay.
When Craig and I met with Amanda, she described human rights being like a scaffold for discussion, and that made sense to me, because and I think children can understand that.
Well, I think within the school community that's quite a good way of dealing with it. In the end, in the court, by argument, the court has to make a decision as to where the court draws the line, and that's the function that the judges have. But in a wider context of a society, of course.
So you think human rights could be democratic in that sense?
Human rights are absolutely about democracy, and the European Court itself has said that at the heart of human rights is this idea of pluralism. In other words, people can be different. Tolerance. We have to learn to accept that people can be different, and broad-mindedness. And if we can promote those ideals, then the human rights scaffolding, if you like, fits neatly into that frame of mind. Can I come in?
Yes.
Good morning, Year 6.
Good morning, Sherry.
How are you, Craig?
I'm fine, thanks. Please have a seat.
Craig's class are consolidating their understanding of human rights in their community by matching their pictures to articles of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child.
Why have you put you've the right to protect your work and paid fairly?
Taxi there.
Yeah, he's working.
Paid fairly.
That's true. And also, presumably, these are all offices, and the people in those offices have those rights too. Now, you've got the right to good health. Why have we got the right to good health?
Because the news agent.
So you're thinking the newsagent might sell sweets and crisps and things that aren't necessarily so good for you? What is that?
Tactile.
What about something?
You have the right to whoever you are. That goes for everyone.
Yes, you have the right to whoever you are. That's a good one, because the fact that you've got a disability doesn't mean you haven't got rights. So I think that's actually a good one. What's this one then? Let's see what this one is.
That's not hard. You have the right to play our school playground.
Oh,
you
yeah.
have the right to play here.
Well, there, I'll put that one in. Oh, this one's for the teachers, look. You have the right to be protected at work and paid fairly, you see.
While out mapping their immediate community, the children notice lots of security cameras. Craig has developed an imaginary scenario in which the school wants to put security cameras everywhere, even in the toilets.
If it's in the toilet, you're being abused, like your body parts are being abused.
Because it's violating the right to have privacy.
Yes, it is.
And I think they should use cameras in the classrooms because if someone wants to steal something, they just know who did it and then they can speak to the parents.
Well, then that's about your property. So you could say that having as well as protecting you, if we take protect to be protecting you from harm, you could also say it's protecting your property, isn't it?
I'll ask you to quickly and quietly come and sit back on the carpet. One side you could say we need these cameras, we need them for safety. On the other side you could say, hang on a minute, you can't have these cameras because of privacy. Are they both human rights, safety and privacy? They are. So, I've got what's called a rights line here. On one end of the scale, you have the right to be safe. Parents, teachers, carers should know absolutely everything you do. The other end of the scale, right, this is the extreme opposite, you have the right to privacy, okay, total privacy. Parents, teachers and carers should know absolutely nothing about what you do, okay? What I want you to do is just talk to your top partner and just decide where on the line you fit.
Parents shouldn't know. I think parents shouldn't know everything about them, and they shouldn't know nothing about them.
Okay, David, where are you? Middle. You're right in the middle. You think there's a balance?
In the middle. There, that one.
Towards this end?
Yeah.
Towards the positive? So can I put you there?
Yeah.
Habiba, where do you fit? And you can tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Habiba wants to be there. Okay. Mergim, I want you to tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Does anyone think your parents should know absolutely nothing about where you're going? One person.
Not,
okay, I'll
not
put you in.
all the way there, but...
Not all the way. What, here?
Yeah.
Okay.
How can you insist that they don't know what you're up to?
I'd never put it right at the end, I would put a little bit. So if when you're in danger, you should tell them, and then they could help you out.
But sometimes if you're in danger, you might be too frightened to tell them.
I'm not frightened to tell them.
Well, that's good. Well, that's very good then. I'm pleased to hear that. But you know what I also think about that? I also think that when you're talking about how much parents need to know about children and how much parents should protect children, I think it depends on their age as well. It's all about where we're placing things on the line. Generally speaking, we don't need to be watched all the time. And so, really, we should put privacy first, unless there's a particular reason to. But we don't have to carry on once the danger has passed. I'll tell you a story. The first time I went into court, there was another young lawyer, and I felt very self-conscious. You have to tuck your hair in. But he said to me, he said, "Cherie," he said, "you look just like Portia." Portia is a character in one of Shakespeare's plays who makes a very famous speech about what's meant by justice. And I thought, what a nice young man. And do you know what his name was? Tony Blair. So remember that. Yeah, I married him in the end.
I thought it went quite well. I thought that's
They
quite a good
enjoyed it?
I think they definitely enjoyed it. They always like having guests in, and that really makes it. They're just listening to me the whole time otherwise. So it's nice to have someone else in. And it was really good to see. I felt they got a really good understanding of the balancing of the rights.
I think the scenarios are really always a good thing.
Yeah.
Because it brings it all alive for them. And a scenario that you can develop so that you might say at this stage, rather like the toilet thing, if you like, but at this stage we wouldn't do that. But then if something else happens, maybe we go a bit way towards that. And then if something really extreme happens, then maybe we'd have to think again.
Yeah. Can you think of a time when this actually would be acceptable? Yeah. Sort of thing, yeah. I do want to steer it away from the toilet.
Yeah, the toilet. Well, the toilet's interesting.
It's interesting, but I don't want to spend the next lesson or two talking about the school toilets.
No.
Really, so.
But I liked your idea with the photographs. It seemed to work very well.
Yeah.
Gave them lots of things to think about.
They certainly know a bit about the community and human rights. Well, thanks for coming in. Really appreciate it. Okay. Bye now. Thank you.